Welcome and thank you for being with us today. I'm Amjad Ahmed and I'm chairman of the Empower ME initiative at the Atlantic Council. Since our launch 2 years ago, Empower ME has shed light on key economic policies and issues to drive a more prosperous Middle East. We have gone beyond the usual discussions focused on security and energy to talk about the long-term investments required in people, which will lead to a more sustainable and stable region. As our work expands, so does our team. I'm excited to announce that Dr. Rasha Helwa has joined us as director of the Empower ME initiative. She brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise on Middle East economies, and I look forward to all of you meeting her at future events. Women's economic empowerment is central to our mission. The WIN Fellowship is a critical pillar in accomplishing that mission. It is not enough to increase women's labor force participation. We need to advance women in leadership. We are hosting this event to discuss strategies and policies for empowering more women to reach senior leadership positions in Saudi Arabia and the wider region. This workshop is part of our new WIN Fellowship in cooperation with Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business. The WIN Fellowship supports 33 Saudi women entrepreneurs to build leadership and executive capacity to scale their startups to new heights and to create enduring networks in the US, Saudi Arabia, and beyond. This workshop is the first in a series of 4 planned over the coming year. This program would not be possible without the generous support of the US Embassy Riyadh, Pepsico, and UPS. I want to also thank our in-person event partner, AmCham Saudi Arabia, for their efforts, and to KPMG for hosting the in-person events in Riyadh, Jeddah, and Dammam. It's now my honor to introduce a vital supporter of this program, Martina Strong. Martina has been integral to the program's success and has always been generous with her time for this initiative. Martina is Chargé d'Affaires at US Embassy Riyadh and a career member of the Senior Foreign Service. She previously served in Iraq as political minister counselor in Baghdad and as the US Army's political advisor in Basra. Before she arrived in Riyadh, she was the deputy chief of mission in Bulgaria. Martina also spent 2 years as director on the National Security Council at the White House, where she headed the US government's multi-agency effort to organize the 2004 G8 summit in Sea Island and 2 other G8 summits and various multilateral meetings. And now over to you, Martina.
Well, thank you so much, Amjad. And it's really wonderful to see so many friends on the screen. Let me just extend a very warm welcome to all of our participants and our panelists, of course, who are joining us today. It's really on behalf of our entire U.S. mission to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that I deliver these welcoming remarks, because as Amjad mentioned, what a tremendous journey we have traveled over the past 2 years when we initially launched the Ignite series. And we went from those discussions to what we're launching today, the WIN Fellowship series. And I think it's really fitting that today's discussion will focus on balance of power, promoting more women in leadership. And this is really what it's all about, as Amjad has already stated. So as I said, we launched Ignite. I'm not sure that we really anticipated that it would be as wildly successful as it has been. And of course, the success is all due to all of the partners and participants. I want to especially acknowledge the Atlantic Council's Empower Me program, the American Chamber of Commerce, the Quantum Leaps and the Office of Global Women's Issues in the State Department, and also, of course, our sponsors, without whom these series would not have been launched, both phase 1 and phase 2. And like Amjad, let me just extend special thanks to KPMG for hosting the participants in 3 cities in the kingdom. It's really terrific that as we go forward in this effort, we are gradually bringing in additional partners because I think that all of us recognize that at this time, we really face a moment of opportunity here in the kingdom. And that opportunity was obviously generated by Vision 2030. I don't need to tell folks on this call what Vision 2030 is all about. But what it has meant for us, certainly here with the U.S. mission to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, is a broad array of new opportunities for engagement and for support. And we have focused early on engaging with women who are entering the workforce and decided this is where we want to focus our programming, focus our funding, because this is where we believe we can have the biggest results and payoffs and impact. And certainly over the past 2 years of Ignite and now the WIN Fellowship, we have seen exactly that. So I am really thrilled to be welcoming our new fellows who will be participating in Georgetown's mini MBA program and will have an opportunity to develop and expand and hopefully soon launch their business program ideas. We are rooting for all of you. This is really just an exciting time to be in Saudi Arabia. And I know that all of you will make us proud. But it's not just that. I know that all of you, as you go forward in your careers, in your entrepreneurial efforts, will provide the same mentorship and support that we are seeking to provide you. You will provide that to other women here in the kingdom and possibly in the region. So congratulations to all of our fellows, and many, many thanks to our partners again. It's really wonderful and a great privilege for me to join you this evening and, of course, this morning in Washington. So thank you very much. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge a special partner who will soon be departing the kingdom, but she has been terrific. Jamie from the AmCham KSA team has been such a force for progress on many different of our joint initiatives. And we're going to miss you terribly, but thank you for all of the contributions you have made. You are a role model for so many women, and not just women, men here in the kingdom as well. So good luck as you move on to your next adventure, and thank you for the great partnership and cooperation.
Thank you, Martina. And we're not letting Jamie go that easy. We're gonna have her stick around and work with the Atlantic Council going forward. So we'll find a way to bring her back on board. But I want to second something Martina said. I recently came back from the kingdom, and if you haven't visited, please do, because the change is just so exciting and fast, and the young people bring such an energy at this stage. And I'm very privileged to work with a lot of women investors, women entrepreneurs in the kingdom, and they're extremely impressive. And if you haven't had a chance to look at the WIN Fellows, I would also urge you to do that and interact with them, because they're really an exceptional group of ladies. I'd like now to introduce Dr. Abdullah Fozan. Dr. Abdullah serves as the chairman and CEO of KPMG in Saudi Arabia and the Levant, including Jordan, Lebanon, and Iraq. He joined KPMG in Saudi Arabia in 2000 and has been instrumental in the firm's growth and success in the past 2 decades. He has 28 years of experience in audit and advisory and is widely considered to be one of the top financial advisors in the Middle East. Dr. Abdullah, we're glad to have you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Amjad and Martina. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And I want to say Amjad, your message for everybody to visit Saudi is true. I mean, the change we've seen in the last 6 years is amazing, and you will witness this if you ever visit Saudi Arabia in person. I want also to thank the Atlantic Council and the American Chamber of Commerce in Saudi Arabia for inviting me to be part of this relevant and important conversation. Looking at Saudi society today, there is so much social changes. It's an amazing time to witness the evolution of our nation and be part of an inspiring vision. Naturally, as part of the transformation, we need to highlight the importance of where women play a role, not just in their contribution in the society as active members, but in how they become part of leadership that shapes society. From my perspective, there are two core elements which need to be looked at to ensure women are achieving leadership position and achieving diversity within our both boards and management. Through changes in legislation and family support, we can ensure women are being provided opportunity to showcase their strong leadership skills. When it comes to legislation reform, let's look at our nationalization initiatives, nitaqat. It has played an instrumental role in both ensuring that the Saudi population is giving opportunity to be active and contributing members of the society while reducing the unemployment. The same could be said if we applied such quota for a woman. And in KPMG, I did the nitaqat internally, and also I put a quota for women, and we achieved a lot. But from 2015 and 2020, we managed through these initiatives and the power of legislation to increase our nationalization from 20% to 42%. But also making sure to provide training programs that can ensure Saudis are prepared for success in their journey with us. When we talk about women in leadership, we also have our internal quota, which I talked about. And we are proud to share that we have now 10 female directors and 3 female partners. And in 2007, we just started, introducing women in the professional firms. And we've been through a challenges journey to achieve this. Now we have more than 300 women in our workforce. Regarding family support, we as men have responsibility to support women and give them a platform to showcase their capabilities. Even when we see men who are high achievers, we support them by sponsoring them. We speak highly about them, make key introduction that benefit them and position them to take advantage of the key opportunities that will help them grow. Let us be realistic that women's empowerment movement is new here in Saudi. So we need to make sure we have balanced ourselves between being patient enough for women to develop in workforce and continue sponsoring women even more. Recently, we just released a publication that highlights the power of women in family businesses, which perfectly reflects these two elements I talked about. Here at KPMG, we are always talk about KPMG family, and whether it's family businesses, corporation, or governments, the theme are consistent in what we can do. To really have a balance of power, we have to have the courage to push boundaries so that as organization we can achieve true excellence in what we do and how we make our society more equitable place to live. Thank you again, Amjad, for having here with you today.
Thank you, Dr. Abdullah Fozan. It's an absolute pleasure to hear you talk about the progress in Saudi Arabia and to experience it for all of us who live in the region. I am Tamara Pupik, managing editor of Entrepreneur Middle East magazine, and it's my honor to join all of you today, to join the Atlantic Council and the Empower ME team in their work on supporting women in Saudi Arabia and across the Middle East region as a whole. As we said, it's absolutely an honor for all of us witnessing firsthand what's happening in Saudi Arabia. And today we will hear more from women who have been working on supporting more women in leadership positions and on boards, to join boards in Saudi Arabia and across the Middle East. And therefore, it is my honor to moderate the panel of fantastic speakers who will join this discussion in just a minute. So let me introduce you that today with us is Ms. Rima Al-Soraihi, Human Resources Director at Pepsico. She has many of years of experience of working in Saudi Arabia, focusing on diversity and inclusion. And she has worked in human resources since she joined PepsiCo 13 years ago, holding numerous positions. And I'm sure that Rima Al-Soraihi will have a lot to tell us about the change in Saudi Arabia. Our next speaker will be Ms. Rima Assad, Vice President for Middle East and Africa at Cisco. She's absolutely amazing woman in leadership position and a speaker that I'm looking forward to hear a lot from, because she is in her role as the first female and local leader in the role of vice president at Cisco Middle East and Africa. She's responsible for overseeing the work of the team of 2,500 people and driving the company's position as a leading technology provider and consultant across 74 markets in the region. So a lot to be heard from Ms. Rima Assad about the change in Saudi Arabia and across the Middle East when it comes to women in leadership. Next one, Lynn Carrot, Executive Vice President and Senior Advisor at Boeing. Lynn, it's a pleasure to have you with us today and to hear more from you about your work as the Executive Vice President and Senior Advisor for the Boeing Company and a member of the company's Executive Council. Most recently, Lynn also served as President and Chief Executive Officer of Boeing Defense, Space and Security. Her role is also, she is a 2019 inductee of the Women in Aviation International Pioneer Hall of Fame. She's also a Royal Aeronautical Society Fellow and much, much more. I will have to cut your impressive bio, but please, all of you listening, please do dedicate a few minutes of reading the bios of all four impressive speakers that we have with us today. And last but most certainly not least, Ms. Penelope Nas, President for International Public Affairs and Sustainability at UPS. She's began her career at UPS in 2012. Managing the public affairs team for the EMEA region, where she enhanced governmental understanding of UPS and the issues facing the logistics industry. She is also the co-chairs the World Economics Forum Global Future Council on Trade and Investment, and has done a lot again to support women. As you said, I'm deeply honored to moderate a panel with four absolutely fantastic and outstanding women. So let me give them the floor, or how we say in this age of Zoom, let me give them the screen and start with, let's assess the present moment. Each of you, please. What would you say, what you see among women around you, especially those who are in Saudi Arabia or working with women in Saudi Arabia? What do you see when it comes to their leadership potential, leadership opportunities? What barriers are still there that we need to work on? And then we'll go into more details about all of that. So let's assess the present moment for women around us and their leadership potential. Arim, shall we maybe start with you, or whoever is willing to start? Rima Al-Surihi, shall we start with you? Please turn on your mic. Okay. Yes.
Hello. Hello, everyone. And thank you for hosting me. I'm very excited to be with all of you today. So your question was about the challenges, Tamara?
Yes, please do share with us your opinion on what you see at the present moment. What are the current, still remaining challenges of that women around you are facing when it comes to advancing to leadership positions?
Yeah, and in my opinion, honestly, I joined Pepsico, so I was very privileged and lucky to be in such organization. So I didn't face whatever I'm going to talk about, but I'm talking about what I've seen from other people who you usually discuss. So the first thing is a lack of mobility for some of them, because some of them have families, they can't travel, parents who are they taking care of. So lack of mobility usually is the biggest challenge that some of the leadership of females are facing due to the family restrictions. The second one is gender stereotype. So I've heard that a lot, that she can't do that, or she cannot attend this meeting because it will start late, or she can't do this because it's too heavy for her, or for any good reasons they might think about. So gender stereotype is one of the challenges that I've seen a lot some male colleagues talking about. Another thing is gender discrimination in workplace, and I personally did not face that, but I can relate for some examples. One of the examples is whenever my male colleagues go for a cigarette, for example, they discuss and sometimes conclude any discussions there, and they come with the solution that Rimaya, we have discussed this and that, and we're going to go ahead with blah 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 blah. So it's not a discrimination, but sometimes they do some stuff that not all the time females are part of. So they might discuss and conclude some of the related that you might have a different point of view, so we can open the discussion again. For me, this is all. One more thing. I mentioned the lack of mobility, but I want to highlight that sometimes female needs to take some personal choices. I mean, sometimes you can't get it all. I mean, you're going to skip some important occasions that you want to be part of, some school gatherings, some birthdays, some anniversaries that you might need to take some decision on.
Thank you, Rima. This is really insightful, and that's why I would like to gather these special insights from all our speakers, and this is why we started with this question, and you really listed brilliantly what we are facing with in a lot of cases. Ms. Rima Assad, can we hear from you now, please?
Thank you, Tamara, and it's an honor and pleasure to be with you all today. So when I think about your question about what are the challenges, I think three challenges or barriers come to mind, but let me argue that I think these barriers are not specifically a Saudi issue. I think this is more of a global issue, and you will be amazed in all the unlikely places you will see the same. So I would think, in my view, the first barrier would be more societal perceptions of women, and I think these are age-old stereotypes that we still find prevalent today. So regarding how women are perceived. So strong women could be perceived as confrontational, or hard driving at work as aggressive, or on other hands, women being regarded as potentially emotional to fit for senior positions of leadership, when it's more, in my opinion, about empathy, or when you're soft-spoken, you're being perceived as weak. So I think this is changing, but still there's some work to be done. So the second thing that is a barrier, I think, is more the business model and the workplace culture. So what does the management structure of an organization look like? Is it male-dominated? Is it balanced among leadership? So research has shown us, and McKinsey came with some research in the US and Canada saying that about 48% of entry-level positions are held by women, but only a little over 20% are for senior roles. So this tells you that there's definitely still a barrier. While also I remember when I was reading some psychological journals, they were talking about that in many cases for career progression, men are judged based on their potential, what they can bring to the table, while women are judged on their base past performance. And I think that's also another barrier. So this will have us all ask why. What's the influence of this unconscientious bias at play in promotional cycles and hiring processes? And do we need to see a move to more of a diverse and leadership teams and really in the hiring boards? So I see a gradual move to that, and we need to continue to push this and heighten the awareness and have the right intention. And in my opinion, even when I work for Cisco and we're in STEM and technology, I cannot accept anymore the excuse that there's not a lot of women and girls in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. I think there's more STEM graduates than males, especially in our region, in the UAE, in Egypt, and in Saudi Arabia. But employment is still a little bit gendered. I think we need to focus on the jobs of the future, and we need to bring women to the table more into coding, machine learning, cybersecurity, AI, and they need to only have the skill, but also the experience. And the last barrier I see, it's a self-barrier. So we can point the finger, but let's also take a moment to look within. And I think we need to challenge ourselves and the way we're conditioned to think and how we're conditioned to act in a certain way. So some cultural challenges are ingrained in all of us. So I think mentorship is a great and important aspect to help us with this. And I find it as a very vital resource to manage this, because we all can have a confidence boost.
We will come back to many of those issues one by one, but I want to stress one that it's very important that you said that it's a global issue. It's not only an issue in everything that you're talking about. It's not only an issue in Saudi Arabia, but around the world. But the thing about being a growing market with an exponential change happening at the moment in Saudi Arabia is the willingness to look into all these corners and to shine a light on them. Let's now continue with the same question with Lynn Carrot. Lynn, can you join us?
Yes, thank you. And really, I appreciate having the opportunity and quite honored to be sitting here on this panel with such distinguished women in their fields. It's just a tremendous honor. I've had I'll build upon both Rima and Rima's comments, because the reflection on that this is a global topic, and the trends that we're seeing very much reflect what we're seeing not only in the kingdom, but we're seeing them in the U.S. As well. And I've spent a lot of time in the kingdom over the last 2 decades, and the conversations that I have with women when we get together to have mentorship and partnership and understand what are the tough issues they're facing. More times than not, the conversations are items and about issues that we see, whether you're in Europe, in the US, as well as the kingdom. And I really wanted to hone in on a couple of the points that have already been made, because again, I think there is amazing opportunity here. Clearly, we have the talent pipeline. More than 50% of the world's college graduates are women. And so it is not for having a lack of smart, articulate, women who can run large organizations at any level that they choose to. But what it is how do we ensure that they have the ability to get into those roles? So I would be re-emphasize about being able to see yourself in a large role in an organization. And many times it is simple as, does the leadership actually represent the community in which you work? Org charts actually matter. We can talk all day about how we believe in inclusivity and diversity and equity, but if the leadership doesn't reflect that type of a world, then you're not going to believe that it exists for you. And you may inadvertently opt yourself out because you give up on the fact that it could be real. Second, the point of unconscious bias was made by both of my colleagues. And this is an area where I think it's incredibly important that there is training about with folks to understand, because each of us has a bias. One of the solutions that we've adopted most recently, and it's proving to work is when we are doing hiring, not only do we have to have diverse candidate pools, but we have to have diverse interview panels. So think about this. You can have wonderful, diverse slates and candidate lists. But if the same people are always doing the hiring, one of the unconscious biases that's very true is you hire people who are more like yourself. And so we need to make certain that we're putting purposeful decisions out in front. And then the final element that I think it benefits all of us around the world, especially in light of the pandemic, women were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic in terms of what was needed at home. What we have to do as companies and as leaders is adopt our policies and our practices to create that flexibility, that opportunity for all of us to have success. And if there is a time when we actually need to step away to do something, women or a man, that we have the ability to come back into the workforce and build upon what we've done and not have to start over. So I look forward to some more conversations on these three topics. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leanne. It's a few very good points raised, and we are now, building a wonderful list of the issues that we need to work on, and everybody adding their own personal experience to this. So I like how you stress the point of the break is to come back after the break, not from the beginning, but to continue where I stopped. And that's really important for so many women. Thank you for pointing that out straight from the beginning. Penelope, can we hear from you, please? Penelope Nas from UPS. What do you see among women around you when it comes to advancing to leadership positions?
Yeah, so hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thanks to my fellow panelists. Looking forward to this. I also want to particularly thank Martina. Martina and I started our careers together a long time ago, and it's always fabulous to be on and see her, and particularly where she's risen to in our nation's government. And I'm so impressed with where she's gone. And I also want to thank Jamie as well and wish her the best of luck with her upcoming transition, and let her know that we stand here to also support her as she's making that shift. I'd like to kind of maybe start where Leanne just was, because I look at we have a tremendous opportunity in front of us with regards to this post-COVID environment. And it's not just COVID, it's also digitalization and this continuing evolution with regards to where the world is going. How do we make sure that we're making sure that all of these transitions are going to be, just equitable, create equal opportunities for people, ensure that we take the best of all of our people along as we go through these transitions. And then add on to that some of the social changes going on. I think in the kingdom, it's probably the most obvious, but I think there's other revolutions going on around the world, whether it be gender, whether it be other issues, where we have an opportunity as societies and as a world to say, how do we want to make sure that what we do and how we move forward, we do better? And that we look at what we've done in the past and we don't just replicate and go back to the way we were, but that we think about how we want to move forward in a way that fulfills what we as societies want to do and where we want to go. So the other thing I would say, Tamara, when I think about the women on this call, when I think about female entrepreneurs, I know in this we're talking about barriers, but I'm always so impressed when I deal with female entrepreneurs because they rarely see the barriers or the boundaries. They run into them on occasion, but they're running and they're creating and they're doing. And so in some sense, what I love is that those things that we talk about, they find ways around them and they are resilient and they are energetic. And I just find these conversations where we talk with people about how they're getting things done, despite everything that's going on. It's amazing when you meet those leaders and you learn from them. Yeah, they may have something that's holding them back in some ways, but many of them are still finding ways to continue to carve paths forward. And I think all of us can learn from that and to determine our opportunities for the future.
Thank you so much, Penelope, especially because I somehow feel that you gave us highlights for the whole this panel, how to make it different, because we all know we're all witness of taking part in so many panels on this kind of topics. And now we, first of all, we are all five of us agree that this is a global issue, not only in Saudi Arabia, but Saudi Arabia has a willingness and the whole Middle East to work on this maybe more and faster than maybe some other parts of the world. But also that now we already have some experience behind us when it comes to working on any of these mentioned topics. And how you said it, let's talk about how we can do it better every next time when we address a certain issue. And I like it so, because there have been attempts to solve any of these challenges, and there will be many more, but how to make them better. So for example, our next question, let's talk about what worked and what didn't work when it comes to a government policy or a corporate policy. So let me first start by, do you think that a top-down approach in the form of a government policy serves as a good indicator for the private sector and sets the tone for the private sector when it comes to, you know, including more women in leadership positions or having more of them on boards? Reem, let's start with you, because you have a mix of both public and private sector experience, both through because you also serve on the board of directors of Egypt's IT industry and development agencies. So do you think that the government can act as a role model for the private sector when it comes to empowering women? And overall, is the top-down approach in the form of government regulation a good way to go?
Thank you, Tamar. So I think while the private sector should hold itself to account, I think there's no denying that the government possesses an innate power to set precedent and influence. So in many ways, the public sector often sets the tone and expectations of how things should be. And I think they can really, really spark a true movement. So let's not forget also that public sector and private sector, they're really trying to pitch for public sector work and business. So when the public sector puts checks and balances for itself and also has the greater expectation of those that do business with it, things follow suit. So I think when we think about setting the right tone and being a role model, I think Saudi leads the way in so many ways, honestly. And when I think about the Saudi Vision 2030 agenda, and when I think about the effort to have full participation of Saudi women at all levels of the labor environment, I think this brings a lot to the table. And I think they have a plan to boost women labor force from 22 to 30% by 2030, if I'm not mistaken. So that's an announced strategy, and there's an effort. And when a country sets the strategy and the vision to do this, the public sector follows, everybody follows. So what does this tell the business? It definitely sets the importance and relevance of women in the workplace. And then when the public sector operates with the forward-thinking nature, always keeping their hand on the pulse of the future, conversations start happening. And then we see the change and the potential of change. So I think this is very important. And I also know that in the Arab Institute of Women for Empowerment, they have just came up with something recently saying that there's a plan to invest in targeting training for Saudi women, which will have a return of $400 billion US. So the topic is much bigger, right? It's not just about moral duty or diversity and inclusion. It's really about economic prosperity for a nation and the government, and who sets the tone is the government. So we don't need to look also just beyond, just in Saudi. Look at the neighboring countries around us. So we can see this in the UAE, for example. In 2015, they had the first ever gender balance council, and setting excellent and a great example of how businesses should work, and it's really inspiring. So it brought a lot of light to a lot of challenges that women are going through and what the workplace and society needs to change. But I also want to flip this idea on its head, because I also remember that governments do not operate in silos, right? So while they're open also to new ideas and policies that can benefit the people, and this comes from the public, from the private sector and from the NGOs. and conversations like what we're having today. And public sector organizations do seek expertise and consultation to solve challenges from the private sector. So look at me, like you gave me an example. So I sit on the board of ITIDA, right, the Information Technology Industry Development Agency, and it's all about knowledge transfer. And definitely, it's a two-way street. Tamar.
True. Thank you so much. It's so true, and especially that governments in the Middle East are really good examples of governments setting the tone for that. But also, thank you for pointing out that it can't be done in silos. That it has to be from both sides, private and public sector working together. Rima, shall we go with you? What do you think about government setting the tone when it comes?
Honestly, I can't add a lot after what Reem mentioned. She covers it all. I echo Reem. I do believe that those regulations helped a lot in driving diversity and having more females in senior or executive positions. However, I do believe that companies have or should take ownership and take more bold steps toward women empowerment. I mean, each company definitely by now has their own strategy. We at Pepsico, we do have female strategy and our ambition that we want to reach to by 2025, similar to the government. But I echo Reem in whatever she said.
Thank you, Rima. I purposely wanted to leave asking Alina and Penelope this question towards the end, because I want to now focus more on the work of the private sector and private sector taking the lead. Now, Lynn, in your former role as president and CEO of Boeing Defense, Space and Security, you were also the executive sponsor for Boeing Women Inspiring Leadership, which is a business resource group, where you managed 33 chapters worldwide and helped position women to lead Boeing into the next century. I love this sentence, by the way. It's a perfect mission for a company. So what are the most important elements that you focused on to develop women leaders within Boeing? So as a private sector company taking the lead in this area, and can you share your insight into Boeing Saudi Arabia, how you work as, again, private sector entity, doing your own part to empower women locally and globally?
Well, Tamara, thank you for the question. First, I'll just say this is a business imperative. There is many thousands of documented cases of research that show when you have diverse leadership teams, diverse boards, that you actually have better business results than if you don't. Even Harvard Business School has done much research on this, as well as McKinsey and others. And so for the Boeing company, we are a global company. We've actually been a partner to the kingdom for more than 80 years. You know, when President Roosevelt presented the first DC-3 aircraft to the king, that is when our relationship started, but it's really amplified over the last 2 decades. And it is really, in my estimation, one of the best examples of how we are breaking through these barriers and how we're putting the power locally. And so first and foremost, we have 9 business resource groups. Boeing Women Inspiring Leadership actually used to be called Boeing Women in Leadership. And it was the women who said, that's not good enough. We need to be inspiring all leadership. And I think that really sets the tone for this panel and for how we are developing talent for the next future and inventing ourselves. We focus on 4 specific areas: professional development, business insight, let's say talent attraction, and then most importantly, and I think this has been really important for our work in the kingdom, a sense of community. Because one of the things that we saw in my work with our local teams is that there was actually a perception that these were only Saudi issues. And so when we started bringing in women from around the company, from around the world in and introducing and helping women move into more senior positions, what we started finding out was the world was a lot smaller, and that many of the challenges we're facing, we all can help bring resolution to and move forward. Now, what's really been fascinating for us, again, is we have really put a focus on this effort and we have results. So if you look at 2021 as compared to prior years, it is the first year in decades, many, many decades, that we have not seen women leave the workforce within Boeing at a higher rate than men. A reversal of a trend also coming out of the pandemic, which reinforces the point that you all have been making is, as a private company, we've had to continue, we have had to continue to keep a business focus and do what's right for our teams and our colleagues so that we can continue to provide value around the world. Additionally, we have seen the percentage of women, ethnics, and minorities actually increase in the last year as compared to prior years. So I'm a firm believer that with purposeful focus, purposeful efforts, and support from leadership, but you give the power locally, you are really able to change the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Purposeful focus and purposeful effort. So let's not waste our energy. Let's decide on the tasks and targets, and that's how we came to where we are today, which is, as you mentioned, every company, I believe, has those achievements when it comes to really advancing women into leadership positions, and Boeing is one very good example. So thank you for sharing that with us. Also, Penny, we can ask the same question because as a private sector entity, UPS has also done a lot to support women within the company to, climb the ladder and reach other higher leadership positions. And what opportunities has UPS identified for women to contribute as Saudi Arabia positions itself as a global logistics center? And I think that a case of UPS is really interesting as a case study because really one of the international companies helping country position itself within a sector, plus also women within that sector to position themselves better on a global level. So can you please tell us more about that?
Yeah, I'll try to unpack that. That's quite a question. So let me just start off by first off, look, at UPS, my CEO is a woman. The two EVPs I report into are women. And then a lot of my team is. And so I think one of the things that I think is fantastic about that, and I agree with a lot of what Leanne said, we have very similar programs, but it's so important because when they have a talent discussion and you have a female CEO there and someone makes the really, insightful comment like, oh, well, she's not as polished as she needs to be when they're talking about promoting talent. Our CEO can kind of call that out as, you know what, that's style and that can be fixed. Can the person do the job? Does the person have the potential to do the job? And so having female leadership that's in the room, having those conversations is absolutely critical. And it's really, really important because while quotas, and I know that Saudi has started to look at putting in place some mandates and some quotas, I think quotas can be really impactful in order to shift societies where culturally it's going to be a huge lift. We do need to always continue to emphasize, however, that quotas, whatever they are, that we're getting the best talent for the job. And if what you're doing is filling a quota, you're demeaning and making it even harder for that person who's ending up in that position because they end up entering the position with a handicap or with, some baggage. Now, frankly, I think it would be fantastic if we get to the point in the world where we're promoting just as many mediocre women as we promote mediocre men. Because, I think that would be full equality because right now we do have to, I think, reach sometimes a higher barrier. And I think it's really, really important. Going back to Leanne's point, we have to have diverse slates. You have to have diverse selection committees, ensuring that we're holding off on those old comments about, she's got kids, I'm not sure she can really put it all into that job. Her husband works. She might not want to relocate. Or she's got family responsibilities with her parents. Ask. And that's what's really important, I think, about some of these things. So UPS, we have a fantastic internal program. We do a lot of great stuff. I'm not going to dwell on that, but I do think there's some other things that we all have to think about in terms of how do we structure the system to ensure that all the talent we're getting is good. My last point is we have to bring the men with us. I was just at the World Economic Forum. I was at an event. Scary statistic that came out was that the people that support female leadership the least are men between the ages of 18 and 35 in the G7 countries. And that's because they see women being promoted as a loss for them. It's a zero-sum game. And so I think we always have to keep an eye on how do we make sure that we're doing this in a way that we're not going to have that backlash in the long run, because men perceive it as them missing out on opportunities. And it's about we're expanding the pie as opposed to swapping out who gets which piece of the pie. Thank you.
Thank you, Penelope, for pointing out that abundance versus scarcity mentality among men and female in the workforce. And I think this would be a good moment for me to invite our listeners. If you have anything to share with us, please use hashtag ACEmpowerME and tag the accounts on social media of both Atlantic Council and Empower ME. We would like to hear from you about your experience regarding all of these topics, because we have really gone into the details. And also, if you would like to pose the questions for our panelists, please do use your Q&A option on your Zoom window or in your chat, and we will come back to those towards the end of this conversation. And I want to thank all four panelists, but particularly Leanne and Penelope, for sharing what's happening in a big corporation, I mean, in the sense that more women, and also, of course, at Cisco and Pepsico, that more women are really reaching higher positions, higher leadership positions, because sometimes I believe you all have asked yourself, what are these conversations for? Are we achieving anything? And then these small details, one by one, you hear that we are achieving. And I'm yet to, I used to joke about that I want to be invited to moderate a panel with men about how they can be promoted in leadership positions more. And I haven't received that invite yet, and I'm living for that moment. And so until then, let's go into what we can do, as Penelope said, about those small moments when somebody is somehow sided, or to avoid all the small negativity in the process. And I think we all agree that mentorships and sponsorships or similar programs can be a good a way to handle all the negativity, or maybe some smaller barriers on the path of women exceeding to higher roles. Reem, shall we start with you, please, about what do you think about mentorship and leadership, or any other and sponsorship programs, and any other program that you think can develop a woman into a leadership position over the years?
Thank you, Tamara. So I think, honestly, mentorship is by far one of the underrated resources that we have and we can leverage. So I think we're all chasing almost qualifications, which is important for sure. But I think we forget about the power of learning from each other and each other's experiences. So let me share a quote. So mentoring is a brain to pick, an ear to listen, and a push in the right direction. And by this is it's designed to uplift people and to help each other and to think differently and to unlock individuals' potential. So I can tell you from my career, I've been very fortunate that I've had amazing mentors that really impacted my life. This is when I was working in the US for 20-some years, and then when I even came back to my home, Egypt, and how I was chosen to be one of the only female CEO running the largest subsidiary under a big holding group and taking it public. And that was the chairman at the time giving me this opportunity. And now I see this, and this was a mentorship from a male leader. And now in Cisco, I see other female leaders, and my boss is a female and amazingly transparent, supportive, and that's what's needed. So I think it's really inspiring when you're at a company or a place or where you're surrounded by inspiring people that are helping you to achieve your potential. And it's very important to share some light on some of the activities and to have programs in these companies to drive this. So in Cisco, for example, we have a mentorship program that we run, and the intention is to help women and girls in IT and to drive the awareness. We have an event called Women of Impact. It's a full day of networking. This is open for everybody to join. We have girls in ICT forums. So it's very important that we build on mentorship and we have these programs. And mentors are really amazing because they help you not just to teach you, but to challenge you to get your best and potential. They create an environment where you can flourish. And then, of course, they're also invested in you because they have check-ins and they help you to go through this. So I think this is really one of the underused, underrated resources a corpus should use. And really, we should put a lot of effort in mentorship and helping our talent to have the timeline, the roadmap, and regular check-ins to get them where they need to get.
Thank you, Reem. Thank you. Let's now go into the details. What does constitute an effective mentorship or sponsorship or any other internal program for really advancing women? And I think Rima Al-Sarihi can tell us a lot about it, because Pepsico is known for being a corporate that has a policy that allows women to have both a family and a career. And I had an honor to interview the former chairwoman, Indra Nurji, and about the amazing change that she's done within the company over the years. So Rima, can you share with us your experience of applying PepsiCo's specific approach in Saudi Arabia that would allow women both to develop both their careers and their families? What can we all learn from that?
Yeah, it's all about flexibility, being flexible to women's need. I mean, in PepsiCo, we've been always keen to provide the best place for women to work, for all our employees, honestly, but especially females. So flexible work arrangement has been always there and kept on evolving due to the increase of the headcount of female and the market practices and situation. Now, we all know after COVID, when the whole work arrangement just have changed overnight, PepsiCo globally has introduced a Work That Works program. And Work That Works is about having greater flexibility on where or how work can happen. I mean, it's more about working in a way that makes sense of your role and responsibilities and your whole life. It depends less on the workplace itself and more into the way we can do great things together. And we identified the role of the office. The role of office now is for four things: connect, collaborate, create, and celebrate. And this is why we go to the office. I mean, after COVID, it's proven that you can do your work even at home. And even before that, before COVID, I joined PepsiCo since like 13 years. And since then, we have this flexible place where you can work at home or any other place, flexible time where there's a core hours, of course, where you need to be there. However, you can start your work earlier. We have a flex day where you can you can work for 2 or more hours per day. Then you can take one day off, whether it's Thursday or Wednesday, wherever you want to spend time with your family. And this is really very supportive and helped a lot of us in arranging their time and with their families. And even after COVID, I mean, even when we started coming back to the office, we noticed that because of COVID, some kids used to still work study from home. So we kept those mothers at home to work from home, and we kept them to come to the office till the last batch. So flexibility. And one more thing I want to add, it's all about being flexible and not to put this complicated process. So the female can always talk to her manager, and he can approve it, and that's it. You don't need to have full process for females to go and work from home.
Thank you, Rima. That's a good point. Make flexibility easier for all of us. It's not the point of having flexibility that will need to be approved with 7 signatures and 7 calls. So thank you for pointing that out. Leanne, shall we talk about your experience with mentorship and sponsorship or any other programs? What has been the most effective for you personally or for women that around you over the course of your career?
Well, thank you, Tamara. And I just have to because Rima, it is so much like industry where we want to create flexibility, but then we put 7 layers of approvals to make it flexible. That is so classic what we all do. So stay strong on that. I really view it as paying it forward. And I'll just share as a personal experience. Years ago, I was doing I was presenting a very difficult briefing. It went for an extended period of time. I left the meeting not feeling really good about how it had gone and the reaction from the group I was briefing. And the next day I received a call from someone in the room. And it was a gentleman who was at a senior position. He wasn't even in my reporting structure, so I didn't report to him. And he called and asked how I was doing. And I shared I was working. And he laughed because that was a great comment. And he said, I just wanted to call and check in. And that is probably one of that moment changed who I was as a leader, because all of a sudden I realized it was about paying it forward. He didn't have an obligation to call me. I wasn't in his reporting structure. He didn't have any actions from the meeting. There was no follow-up required. This was someone who just saw someone who probably wasn't having their best day, who probably left not feeling the best about themselves. Maybe as many of us as females do, we sometimes let that inner voice get into our head and really start playing some funky games with us. And it has caused me to change. It caused me to change my leadership approach. And so something I share with folks all the time is formal mentorship programs are great. I support them. I am an avid fan of them. But informal mentorship is equally as important. And I actually think results in profound relationships that will withstand the test of time. And they can be colleague, they can be leadership, they can be someone who works from you, because we all need people in our lives who are going to be straight with us. They're going to tell us when we're doing great, and we need that pat on the back because they're being reinforcing and they're helping us. But we also need people who will be honest with us about what we could do better. And we need somebody that we can call who really is just a voice to listen. And so mentorship has played an enormous role in my career. It has opened up my network. It has allowed me to know and connect with people from around the world. But most importantly, mentorship was there on one of my darkest days. And it provided me a light of optimism that I hope I pay forward every day to somebody. Thanks, Tamara.
Thank you so much, Leanne. This is such a wonderful story to hear. And, it really comes back both what you and Rima said, random acts of kindness. Never underestimate the power and the profound impact that they can have. And I like how both you and Rima emphasize that we don't need that much formality in any of the relations that we have, be it to give somebody more flexibility or simply to give somebody support and just be kind to them when they are having a bad day. This is such a wonderful example, and it's example for all of us. So do not wait for a government measure, for a policy from a private sector, or to be part of a group of mentors or a sponsorship program to be nice and kind and to offer a helping hand to somebody next to you or somebody that you're witnessing is having a hard time. Thank you so much, Leanne. I hope this will be one of the takeaways for our listeners. So please do share your examples of how you've been supported. AC Empower ME hashtag and the social accounts of Atlantic Council and Empower ME. And Penelope, now we're coming to you. What can you tell us about all the formal and informal programs that help women?
Yeah, so I think of Leanne, that was a really touching story. And I think about, I've had a couple women reach out to me lately and ask, asked to be, would I mentor them? And on my very first mentor calls with them, they burst into tears, because I think all of us are coming out of COVID with different expectations and just a lot of stress in our lives. And so, frankly, I think they all apologized to me, like, this wasn't how I meant for this call to go, but it made me feel that I was actually doing something that day, because I was helping somebody who was having a tough time. Tamara, when I think about it, it's when I think about the people who've helped me in my career, I've had extremely supportive bosses who have always advocated for me. But I've also always had these kind of silent supporters. So when there's a talent discussion going on, it wasn't that my boss was pushing for me. And I think, we all forget this. There's that one lone person in a crowd that might be dancing, and they may, and it doesn't become a mob that's dancing until a second person joins in. Otherwise, it's just a kooky person doing a dance. And when you think about talent discussions in companies, one person speaking and advocating on your behalf is clearly important. But what really pushes all of us, I think, over the edge is the fact that other people jump in and say, oh, yeah, she's amazing. Oh, yeah, she's fantastic. And so I think that that's something that we all have to think about. It goes back to Leanne's comments about not just mentorship, but sponsorship, and just, making sure that you're developing those networks internally that are going to help you get over it. And then, Tamara, there's a couple of questions in the chat, and I don't necessarily want to.
We'll come to them towards the end. Alison from the Atlantic Council team is going through that. So
okay.
Let's just focus on our questions for now, and then Alison will guide us through that.
Well, because one of them I think is important, which is a person who said that she has a concern because when people may say that she only got promoted because she's a woman, and that's undermining her confidence. And all I would say to her is, you should really actually feel sorry for the guys that are making that comment, because they lack imagination to come up with something better. If they're going to fall back on that with you, that's about them. That's not about you. And so I would just encourage the woman that put in that comment, that's maybe not a person I would actually focus on caring about their opinion, because again, clearly it's about them, not about you. So I just wanted to make that comment, because I think that change management is really hard, and all of us are in companies where we're going through change management, transformation, governments, societies, and there's a group of people that you're never going to be able to convince to come along with the change that needs to take place. So focus on those people who are ready for the change and align yourself with them. They're going to help propel your career. They're going to help build your confidence. Those are the people you want to be with, and leave those other people behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Penelope. This is a good intro to our next question, and thank you for all of you asking the questions, and especially this question, because the next one let's talk about. We talked about what the government can do, what our companies can do, what our colleagues or even random strangers who are beyond kind can do to help us, but what we can do to help ourselves. So let's talk about those inner barriers, internalized fears, stigma, problems that you might be associating with yourself reaching a leadership position, or when you do reach it, you're not equipped enough maybe to deal with comments, naysayers, etc. So what, for example, personally, what has been the most important thing for you personally, Reem, when it comes to developing a leadership skill that you didn't have before, but you had to develop over the course of your career in order to become who you are today? Reem, shall we start with you, please?
Tamara, so I think three things. You work on yourself to build your confidence. You believe in your ability and you become your own champion. And like we heard from Leanne and Penny, you look for people that support you and they're the positive voice in your life. So I think this is one thing. The other thing I learned is that you need to learn to ask for help. It's very important that we all learn from others, and we all don't have to know it all. And the best people who are the people that ask for help and have the network and to support them to grow and to thrive in their environment. And the last thing that I think is very important is to continue learning. no role, no matter where you go, if you stop learning, then you're really missing out. So I think my advice to everybody to continue learning anything, habits you like, hobbies, things at work, politics, sports. Learning is a great thing. It's a great ground for conversation, and it helps you grow and expand you. So I think when I look at myself and the three things that I focused on throughout my career, those would be my three advices, Tamara, to everybody.
Thank you so much, Reem. Learning and focusing on going forward, right? Rima, shall we hear from you? What has been a leadership skill that you had to develop in order to become who you are today and to build a career that you have now?
I mean, the first thing is ownership. You always need to own your career. Work on your development, seeking new opportunities, critical experience. Don't wait for anyone to come and tell you work on that. If you find any new opportunity that you want to work on, go and seek, go and ask them to be part of this project or anything. Second, be yourself. And don't be shy of highlighting any development opportunity or any development area that you want support with, because it doesn't show that you're weak. It shows that you're strong enough to highlight the support that you need in order to develop your skills. And I think that's all. So critical experience, ask for critical experiences, on your career, and seek for, and adapt to change. I mean, we keep changing, multinational organizations and others, it's keep changing. So always adapt to change and act quickly.
Thank you so much, Rima. Thank you so much. Leanne, what's your take on this?
Well, I have something that I call the 4 Gs that have really been imperative throughout my career. And it's grit, gumption, grace, and gratitude. And grit is about rolling up your sleeves, doing the hard work, being known for delivering on your commitments, owning them. Gumption is about not letting that inner voice become your outer facade. It's about believing in yourself, putting yourself out there. Don't let that imposter syndrome get the best of you, because it is not yours. You don't need to own it. Grace is about giving yourself a break and giving others a break. Life's not going to go the way we expect it to. There are going to be professional and personal failures. How you handle it and how you have grace with others as well as yourself really dictates how you're received. And then finally, gratitude. I'm a big believer in saying thank you, and how you work with meetings, colleagues, teammates, customers, suppliers, how you comport yourself at large. So those 4 Gs are really, really important to me. So thank you for asking.
Thank you so much, Leanne. I think these are all some personal success strategies for all the wonderful ladies who are sharing their wisdom with us. So for all of you listening, please do note this down. These are unique pearls of wisdom, and this is exactly how these women achieved so many things that they have. Penelope, what about you? Can we hear about what has been your leadership skill that you had to develop over the course of your career?
So I'll give you one that I'm working on because I'm not very good at it. And it's because I think, frankly, Leanne, I loved your 4 Gs. I think that's a phenomenal one, but I think all the others have been captured a lot of what I'd say. For me, it's humor. And so if I think about it being a leader and you think about the importance of humor, and I know this is cultural, but humor can be a way of disarming situations in a way that helps you elevate your status and be seen as a leader. And it's a skill I don't come by naturally. It's one where my attempts at improv humor are really pathetic. But, I can think of countless examples and stories I've been told where, in particular, women were able to take a situation that could have been really negative or really knocking them down in status, and instead we're able to flip the conversation in a way that made it important. So I'll give an example. There's a woman who's a vice chairman of a bank now in the United States. She's a Black American woman. And when she was young in her career, in her early 20s, she walked into a meeting, and one of the elderly men in the room, when she walked in, there wasn't a chair available. So one of the elderly bankers started slapping his thighs and saying, "I've got a seat for you right here." And she turned around and replied to this individual with, "Be careful about writing a check that you're not able to cash." And flipped the situation, flipped the power dynamic, flipped that whole situation from being what could have been a very demeaning situation to now suddenly she has the power because he couldn't figure out how to respond to that comment. And she was being respectful. She wasn't.
Absolutely.
But I think humor is really important. And I know, Tamara, probably in your industry, it's something that you're well aware of as well. So
yes, we have a lot of fun. But I do agree with you but somehow I feel that the use of humor is when you want to lighten the situation and get yourself out of the situation, which is not your fault, which you're witnessing somebody else reacting in a wrong way, like this example. And that's why I find it as a absolutely elegant way of solving a situation that it's unpleasant and unfair. But is it right? Sometimes the other person really needs to hear from us. But luckily, what I want to point out now is that I think I am from, and most of us here are from a generation of women when we don't have those rude comments anymore. I think all these conversations that we are having, you do, right? But not that much, right? I somehow feel that all these conversations that we're having and the institutions like initiatives like Atlantic Council, Empower ME, and so many around the world have really put a spotlight that now many of those men are refraining from being discriminatory in any way as they would maybe 20, 30 years ago. At least this is my hope and something that honestly I really have witnessed. And that's why I want to, picked a few questions from the audience, and I'll ask both of them, all three of them. I'll just state them, and then you can decide if all of you want to answer them. First of all, thank you, Rola Osta, and thank you, Yara Hejazi, for asking your questions about being a woman in a different sector. So sometimes everything what we talk about sounds as a one-size-fits-all approach, but it doesn't, right? So some women work in sectors that are really male-dominated and that they cannot overcome. So what would be your advice for them? And also Yara Hejazi asked about, she wanted to more explanation from Rima about your comment about male colleagues having their important work conversations during, for example, a small break, and then not including a woman. And after that, we'll talk about just the last question from the audience about how much anything of this applies to getting women into board positions, because we talked more about women in the workplace. So who would like to talk about experiences of women in different sectors and more male-dominated cultures? Rima, would you like to start, and then we can see well.
I would love to answer Yara, because I read the question and I smiled because I remember what happened after that. So the first time I was very frustrated. I just have this smile and I said, okay. Then the second time this happened, I said, but I wasn't there. Can you elaborate more and tell me what kind of discussion you had and why did you come into this conclusion? The third time, I said the same. Then after that, it never happened again, because they knew that I might even book a meeting only to have the same exact discussion that they had separately. So I believe that you need to voice this out. You need to tell them that, hey, I'm here, and you can't have such discussion without me since I'm part of that. And this is what happened.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rima. It somehow aligns with my comments. Some things you need to maybe solve with a little bit of funny moments and funny sentences and humor, but sometimes you really have to go head on and to address the issue nicely and politely, but clearly. Any other? Penelope, Lean, Rima, would anybody else would like to add anything?
Tamara, this is Leanne. I'll share that in one of my former positions. I went into a new location and I came to the meeting and it was predominantly male. And we all sat at the table except for the female that was in the room, who sat on the side of the room. And I asked, you need to sit, why aren't you sitting at the table? And she said, I'm not allowed to. And I said, well, you are, and you need to be, and I expect you to. And so you're going to sit next to me for the next 6 months. And so it was two forms. One, Penelope shared having women in leadership who can identify these microaggressions and can call it out and do it in a way that everybody notices. But to your point, Tamara and Penelope, again, with doing it with humor so that it can lighten the mood, but it's still very purposeful. But it is something that I think as women, regardless of our position, we actually have a larger ability to influence the conversation, the narrative, and where the good conversation is coming from. So I would submit that most all of us on the panel today and listening in have been in a meeting where someone mentions an idea and then somebody else voices it, and that second person gets credit for it. What's really powerful is that when one of us stands up and says, that's great, thank you, so-and-so, but I'd like to let everybody know, Reem, I really appreciate you bringing that conversation to the forefront. And so we have the ability through, again, inserting ourselves and helping build out to make sure that our voices aren't lost, because we must have a seat at the table and our voices must be heard.
Thank you so much for Leanne for this. This is so important. Make sure to find a way, whichever appropriate, given the situation, to have your voice heard, and it's your responsibility to do it. Penelope, Reem, would you like to add anything, or shall we continue with closing the event? Reem, would you like to?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what Leanne just said, because it triggered in my mind. At the end of the day, I think diversity is having a seat on the table. And knowing every time you're sitting on the table, you're adding value, because you sit on the table for a reason. So remember that whenever you're sitting in a meeting on a table, that you need to add value, and that's why you're here. I think the second thing, inclusion, is when you have a voice on the table, right? Which is important. But I think belonging is when your voice is really heard. And I think that's what we all need to work on in companies, in our leadership positions, in our teams. That it's all at the end, it's not about ticking a box for diversity, it's not about inclusion, it's about having a belonging, and a sense of belonging where you're really being heard. Just wanted to elaborate on what Leanne said.
Thank you so much, Rima. This is a new level. It's not about being heard, it's a sense of belonging. And it's even higher than ownership, the sense of ownership. So thank you for introducing this new important vocabulary and the new level of really women owning, actually belonging to this new leadership level, let me call it that way. Penelope, would you like to add anything? And then I'm closing because we're running out of time. It's been such a fantastic conversation. It's hard to end it, but Penelope.
So just quickly, I think a couple things. One is different industries, different sectors. So I've been in government, finance, and transportation, and there are differences in terms of how you might need to maneuver within each of the industries. But I think the overall messages we've talked about today are applicable with regards to, you got to work hard, you got to have grit, gumption, grace, gratitude. You gotta, in some industries there may be different impediments, but I think it's something that you can carry across. Second is board positions. Here, this is where some of you were asking about questions about government policies. This is an area where we have seen the threat of quotas on boards has really moved the needle in a lot of countries. And if I was going to think about an advocacy in KSA to help move the needle on some things, I would think about it in terms of board positions, potentially. It's in their interest to have diverse boards, but not everybody sees that the first time around, and having a government policy might be very helpful. And again, I just want to conclude with somebody else put in a comment again about, having having concerns about that their male colleagues don't see them as equals. And, what's really important is how you see yourself. And I just really want to encourage those on this call. You're not going to impress everybody. Everybody's not going to be your friend, but you've got to have confidence, and you got to have the supporters and the people in your lives cheering you on every day to say, you're fantastic. Keep going. Because if you don't have that, there are naysayers everywhere you turn. So I just want to charge all of you, if you need a pickup, send me an email. I'll tell you back how fantastic you are. So, and help you keep going in the face of whatever you got. Because that's what we need sometimes, just someone to say, you know what, you're great. And don't let the naysayers get you down, because that's on them. That's not on you. So just, to conclude, sorry, Tamara, but I just saw that question come in a second ago.
I think this is the most important, one of the most important, and we've had so many important points raised throughout the discussion, but this, just having somebody to cheer for you and cheer you on, it's so important. And we always, no matter how strong we look and we try to look, we all need this. And I think this conversation has shown that over the last 1 hour. I want to thank all of you. We have exactly a few more minutes for the final conclusions for each of you. So I'll ask you just for a conclusion in just a few lines, what would be one thing that you would like all of us to focus on? And if you allow me, I will start first, and it's in line with what I said. I'm really interested to learn what men think of these ideas, because what I've been working on a lot is to include men into these discussions, because I somehow always moderate these panels of organized semi-private or public events or in-person or digital with women. And I'm really interested to hear men's experience, and especially because I'm blessed with a really supportive workplace environment, and my editor-in-chief always supports whatever initiative I have. And we had an interesting situation recently when he was invited for a panel, to moderate a panel, and it was all male speakers. And he was the only one who said, no, but they're all male speakers, bring a woman. And you know what happened? They said, okay, can you call Tamara instead of you? So that's what happens to men supporting women, right? So he was changed. Of course, we didn't agree to it, but this what can happen when a man, you have an agent of diversity within a workplace, trying actually within a sector, trying to make a change, and then he is faced with, okay, you can then stay at home and we want your female colleague. So I really want to hear a male perspective on this. So please feel free to reach out to us and let us know what is happening. And of course, I'm extremely grateful for all 4 fantastic speakers and Atlantic Council and Empower ME Initiative for this topic and this question. So one more last question for all 4 of you. If you would like people to focus on only one thing as a takeaway from this panel, what would that be?
So I'll
Just believe. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think we're saying the same thing, Rima. I was going to say, believe in yourself.
This is, that's what I was going to say.
Believe in yourself.
I think we are done. Our final is believe in yourself. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you so much to Amjad and the whole Atlantic Council team. And thank you to our wonderful panelists. It was truly an honor to moderate for you. And our joint message for our listeners is believe in yourself. Thank you all. I believe we will now